Jake Hatch of Locked On Cougars talking all things BYU in the very hypothetical scenario that Jake Retzlaff does not play at BYU this fall. And both of us believe that at the very least he'll serve some time on the bench or maybe be gone the entire August through December. In that case, who's next? What happens?
Well, that's the $1 million question right now, Drake, because you look at the quarterback room for BYU outside of Retzlaff. You do have two guys who have Division I experience. McCae Hillstead, a former Utah State transfer. He's a high school star from Utah County, and that obviously lends itself to maybe him being in the mix, but also Trayson Bourget, our good friend Richie Bradshaw, loves to bring up the Bourget family name, but Trayson also has played at Western Michigan, and he's got a kid from Arizona. They both have D1 experience. They just brought in a high-profile transfer in Bear Bachmeyer from Stanford as well, former 4-star athlete. So you got three names there that, let's say they do come out at the start of training camp in August and say, hey, Jake's on the shelf for the time being, and we're going to have a QB competition here to figure out who's going to replace him. Those are the three names. If you're a Big 12 fan or a Cougar fan who's wondering who to pay attention to, those three names will compete. I would say from my vantage point right now, I would give the leg up to McCae Hillstead, but that does not mean that any one of these guys couldn't win that job coming out of training camp.
So let's do this. If I go to Iowa State and I take Rocco Becht out, if I go to Kansas State, take Avery Johnson out, oh my gosh, if I go to Baylor and remove Sawyer Robertson from that roster, I think those three teams look way worse. You're dropping them 3, 4, 5 spots in your Big 12 preseason standings. For BYU, do you think Jake Retzlaff means that much to this offense as guys like Robertson or Becht or Johnson would mean to other Big 12 schools?
I want to say BYU wants or wanted him to be that this year. Does that make sense? They wanted him to become that star player.
Which can we? I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off here, but can we agree? I don't know if he was at that star caliber last year as much as he was go win the game kind of guy. He wasn't the go dominate the game kind of guy. He was the go win the game guy.
That's the thing. He made plays that helped them win football games last year. But I think the lasting image for most people of last year's team for BYU 11-2 was obviously that team that just dominated Colorado, 36-14 in the Alamo Bowl. Yeah. You know what Jake Retzlaff's stat line was in that game, Drake?
He was like 12 for 21 or something. Isn't it terrible?
12 of 21, 151 yards, and 2 interceptions.
Yeah.
They crushed Colorado in spite of that stat line from him. That tells you that BYU was more of a team, I'll say collective team, than they were about one quarterback. I'm not trying to downplay what Jake Retzlaff means to this program. History suggests when BYU has a senior quarterback, which Jake Retzlaff is poised to be, they're going to be pretty darn good. The situation is, though, they went 11-2, and at times, in spite of him having some lackluster stat lines last year. That's the thing about this, Drake, is that, yes, they may lose out on a senior quarterback who's got 17 career starts, who talked about winning the Heisman and was a guy that was poised to have a really, really fine senior year. But in many respects, you're right. You take a guy off one of the other Big 12 contenders rosters at quarterback, that probably knocks him down a peg or two. For me, I think it maybe cost BYU a win or two. That's more of where I'm at. So maybe you're thinking they're a 10-win team this year. Maybe they're an 8-win team without Jake Retzlaff.
Yeah, and that goes into how the Big 12 standings should change. And a lot of people have been on board with BYU winning the Big 12 conference next season. And Jake Retzlaff's name has been thrown around in that conversation. Hey, your quarterback is returning, and that's always a large piece. But gosh, 10 quarterbacks are returning in the Big 12. You know, the whole league has got guys that at least started a game or two last season, or some that were full-time, full-season starters. Jake, how should this shake up at the top of the league? Should BYU drop a few pegs? I mean, should we be expecting other schools not named BYNU to be in Arlington?
Right now, just with the uncertainty around Jake Retzlaff, I would say you take BYU out of those two teams you probably had tabbed maybe for the Big 12 title game, but you're not going to count them out to the point that if there's some craziness in this league, because you and I have both seen the over-under win totals, there's 8 teams, if I'm not mistaken, that have either 7.5 or 8.5 wins as their over-under win total. The odds makers, our friends at FanDuel, et cetera, they really think that this is going to be a topsy-turvy league that is going to have a lot of dog-eat-dog parts to it, and that could help BYU in this circumstance. If they don't have Jake Retzlaff, just the fact that this league may not have a clear dominating program out there, that could help them stay in the mix. But yeah, right now with the uncertainty, I would absolutely have other teams pegged to go to Arlington.
Man, Jake, I not you. You're the consummate journalist. You're very professional. There were a couple times last season, even in wins, where I felt like, man, maybe A-Rod isn't exactly what BYU needs in this moment. Jay Hill has proven to be just a czar of college football defenses, and almost surprising, he's still a D coordinator, not a head coach somewhere at a lower level Division I school or even a lower level, trying to rebuild at Purdue. How much of this onus comes on A-Rod now to reset the offense and do something really not revolutionary necessarily, but at least shocking, stunning, different, and just dip down in his bag to create something brand new at BYU?
Well, that's the opportunity that exists. The reason why I would favor McCae Hillstead to be the guy if Retzlaff is unavailable is because McCae Hillstead is a true dual threat quarterback. He's not very big, Drake. I think they list him at 5'10", but he has got absolute wheels. I called his very first high school football game here in the state of Utah, his first start at Skyridge High School, which is about 15 miles north of Provo. And I remember walking out on the field, talking to the head coach of Skyridge High School, saying, "Okay, so who's your quarterback tonight?" He points over to this pint-sized kid, and I'm like, that cannot be him. Nope, yeah. It's him. And all he did, Drake, I felt like he passed for 250 and ran for 200. That's what it felt like in that game. His ability to really be a true dual threat quarterback, I think would allow a guy like Aaron Roderick to design a whole new kind of offensive system. I'm not saying that Jake Retzlaff can't run, but he's more of a quarterback who's going to make plays from the pocket and run when he needs to. Whereas with a McCae Hillstead, who's got a pretty fine arm himself, you can really run a bunch of QB read option type stuff, RPO actions, and that like BYU hasn't run in many, many years, maybe since Jaron Hall was the guy in Provo, and even more than that. So it would open up new avenues for this offense to try with a true dual threat quarterback on the field. And it would give Aaron Roderick, a chance to really reassert himself as, I am an offensive genius. Watch this unfold.
Yeah, I think I want to emphasize again, it is not set in stone that Retzlaff will not play next season. And while it seems likely, I believe we would both agree likely is a term that could be used in this scenario, given the complexities involved, not just for BYU, but any university when fighting, a civil suit around this. And from there, this has to be a discussion on a sports talk show, on a podcast about BYU football, about the Big 12, about who would be next if a likely scenario unfolds. And I'm glad you brought up so many all-name team guys. It's just whoever BYU goes with, they're going to be
Bear Bachmeyer, McCae Hillstead, and Trayson Bourget. Come on. Those are some good names just in terms of football players. And by the way, the other thing about Bear Bachmeyer, he wears the number 47, Drake, as a quarterback. Number 47. Get ready, everybody.
Which is so BYU, it's not even funny. Those guys are all in line, and I'm sure that whoever is tabbed, if that case unfolds, will be ready to jump at the bit. Coming up, the transfer portal doesn't even matter. That's a heavy statement. Locked on Big 12, Locked on Cougars.